Resident Evil up to this point had been at it for over a decade by this point, and the series was about to undergo an even more drastic change than RE4. But change isn't always for the better. I'm Saggi, and I'll be going over the worst parts of Resident Evil 5. This one is either the biggest pro or biggest con in the game for most. For the first time in the franchise, co-op is introduced and will influence whether this is one of the best RE experiences you can remember or one of the worst. Amongst other issues, playing this game solo is like loving your balls but then asking to be castrated. If you had issues with Ashley in RE4, don't dare step a foot into this campaign on your own. Not only do you get to play this poor man's Resi 4, but you have to do this with one of the worst types of AI models, the deliberately dumb. You can't give Sheva any valuable resources such as a good weapon because she'll blow through that shit with the most inefficient gunplay she can muster. You can't rely on her for advanced combat tactics. You can't even rely on her in sections where it's mandatory to split up sometimes. And I get it, they didn't want the AI to do all the work, but why program her to do almost nothing? At least with Miss Graham, I know she's useless, so her dying or getting captured is completely on you. Sheva has a fucking gun with the same melee capabilities as you, but acts like your 6-year-old brother behind the sticks. The only way to make her remotely viable is to manipulate her AI into supporting high ammo conservation by giving her strong yet minimal ammo, consuming bullets such as a rifle or a magnum if you dare. Coupled with a vest or two and a stun rod, and she can be your sharp shooting bullet sponge healer who can also double as a pack mule. RE4 rolled out and showed us a refreshing concept of the inventory system which evolved the original formula while still feeling familiar. I suppose they decided against letting you be a walking item box a second time due to the co-op partner edition. I mentioned how you would use Sheva as a pack mule when running solo, and this game's rendition of the inventory is the primary reason. They want the game to be like RE4, but they give you an inventory like the original trilogy. One of the ongoing problems from the previous game continues here, where they decrease the maximum ammo stack, but that isn't the main issue. You see, despite still having lower stacking capabilities than the first three, the stacks in the game go higher than RE4, but guess what? That shit doesn't matter. You have 9 inventory slots through the entire game, and 18 if you include your partner, but it's really only 16 because the bare minimum you will carry is a gun and ammo for that weapon. Remember in RE4 when you buy the tactical vest and it's a passive that reduces damage? Well, fuck that, because that was a dumb idea, right? Now you have to buy 2 separate vests that reduce melee and projectile damage respectively, and best of all, they take up an inventory slot. I will say that the game isn't difficult enough to warrant a purchase of either unless you want to make Sheva your tank and healer, but it's the principle. Sheva literally tells you in the first mission that you should give her anything you can't carry. So it sounds like they intentionally handicap you for the sake of keeping you on a leveled playing field when your adversaries, and yet they want you to play it as RE4 Part 2. Just another thing they saw in the previous game and asked, how can we make this worse? I hope you like bombastic, non-stop action because it starts at the wannabe Ganado village and keeps rolling from there. There really is no problem with a game of this style, but I want to know who wanted any of this from a Resident Evil game. 4 really did a number on the franchise and its identity, and it starts to rear its ugly head here. Yes, Resi 4 has quite a bit of action, but at least it's trying to include horror elements that would make your skin crawl. This game just doesn't give a fuck about any of that. The body horror on display is for the sake of showing you what onslaught of enemies you'll be facing next, and not to make you think, damn, that's kinda fucked up. Ricardo is the only person that really comes close to giving you that Resident Evil bioweapon feel, but it proceeds to be relegated to a glorified turret section. Remember El Gigante? Yeah, you fight him once and it's also a turret section. Most of the bosses, even Wesker, are super reminiscent of the mode from RE7 and 8, and if you know anything about them, you'll know how samey they start to be. This boss is a bug. This boss is a bigger bug. This boss is a tapeworm monster. This boss is a bigger tapeworm monster. But what about the normal enemies? Well, they are similar to Ganados, where they have some form of intelligence, but much less of the design. For example, when a Ganado wants to blow your ass up, you'll see him light a stick of dynamite, and if you can't see him, you'll hear him. Not in this game. They just chuck bombs at you, so I hope you're paying attention to him while he's off screen and you're taking care of the immediate threats before you. Also, like halfway through the game, they start throwing in these arenas where you can stick to a wall or barrier to fire back at the enemy, and it adds nothing but clunky interactions. And yes, I said fire back, because now your enemies get guns. I get that enemies are controlled by an advanced variation of the plaga that infected the villagers in 4, but the execution leaves a lot to be desired. It goes from a lackluster RE4 knockoff to a shitty Gears of War knockoff. Leon may not have been doing Raccoon City levels of mental gymnastics in Spain, but there's just about no puzzles in this game to be found, and if you come across one, it's some watered down Sesame Street problem that you'll forget about by the next chapter. If Resident Evil 4 is survival action, then this is just mindless action. QTEs were kinda in RE3 if you consider the live selection to be as such, and it truly developed in RE4. But here, they take that shit to the moon. In RE4, you did want to make sure you were on your toes in case of a prompt during a cutscene, but this game takes the cake. They're not hard necessarily, but they come out of nowhere sometimes and you'll die just because you weren't expecting to have to press a button combo. And it's not like they constantly show up. They're almost randomly sprinkled throughout the game. Like the devs were like, this could be a good place for a QTE. Oh wait, we forgot we were doing those in this game. Let's add one here. I still have a problem with the real-time QTEs as well, because it's nonsensical to be attempting to create an action game, but force the player to wait until the game wants them to dodge to have the means to. They're like a parry, but shitty because it's never the same button. Take Wesker 1 for example. You let him run up on you and the prompt is square or your system's equivalent. Okay, so you'll be prepared for the next assault, right? False, because this fucker thinks this is MVC3 and wants to hit you with a 50-50, so you have to guess whether it will be square or X within a frame or two. Okay, maybe that's the only one that was grinding my gears, but the QTEs in general aren't a problem secluded to me. Even though I could live without them, punching that damn boulder in the volcano will never get old. But what do you think? Maybe you wish the gameplay wasn't so linear and less of a shooting gallery. Maybe you wish that Wesker could have lived on to give one more good showing. Let me know below. Like and subscribe. I'm Saggi, and I'm also out.